we come to Psalm 139, I thought I would take a little bit of a departure and look at one particular verse in this psalm. And I guess it kind of stood out because we covered this topic in our Sunday school this morning about how God has made us and our unique place and how special we are in that sense. And Psalm 139 really is a unique psalm altogether because it kind of takes an out of the normal view of things. Notice it talks about the Spirit. Where can I go and flee from your Spirit? So it's talking up and down, and there's nowhere to go. And then it looks into our creation from within the womb. So it's just kind of the approach of Psalm 134 is unique to begin with. And there's one particular verse, and that's verse 14 that I wanted to look at. And verse 14, as it reads in the English, is really divided into four phrases. So it starts out, first phrase, I will praise you. The second phrase, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. The third phrase, marvelous are your works. And the fourth phrase, and that my soul knows very well. That last phrase kind of is difficult to understand. I mean, it's always been a little bit of a puzzle to me every time I read it. And I wanted to take a look at this psalm and go phrase by phrase just for a few moments. This won't take very long. And see what I think it's really saying. And the picture that I selected, I mean, it's not a special picture, but it is a picture of a man before nature. And I picked that on purpose because of part of what it says here in this psalm. So let's take a look at it. And we want to take the first phrase to begin with. And it says, I will praise you. That's how it reads in the English. Now, actually, if you read this verse as it's stated in the Hebrew, he's not really saying, I will praise you for something, or like in the future. He's actually saying, I praise you. I am praising you because. And so this becomes the first phrase, the praise of the psalmist. And then he's going to give the reason for it. And actually, this is what he's doing in this psalm. He's praising the Lord in this psalm. So, this is, there's not much difference here between I will praise you. That could be, my ongoing intent. I'm praising you now. I'm going to keep on praising you. But the point is, he is going to consider himself and his creation. And that is the means by which, or the reason by which he praises God, right? He praises God because of how he is made. And so that is appropriate and it's fitting for us. Part of our life in this world, we know that we're supposed to love God with all of our heart, mind, and soul and strength, right? And we're supposed to love others. But that one about loving others is kind of qualified, right? You're supposed to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And so there's this important position in which we must accept ourselves as the creation of God to a certain extent. Now, I'm not talking about being self-focused or overly focused or being selfish or prideful or just kind of lifting ourselves up. I'm not talking about that. But there is a healthy sense in which we are to love ourselves, and it is that way in which we love ourselves that we are to love others. And so I care for myself, and I want to be happy, and I want to be comfortable, and I want to be safe, and I want all of these things, and we automatically do these things in our lives, and just as we do them for ourselves, we are to do them for others. Someone who is too proud or thinks more of themselves than anybody else is not going to be helpful to anybody else and not being able to love anybody else. Those who beat themselves up on the head and say, I am unworthy, I'm like a worm, I don't deserve anything except to live in the hole of the groundhog, and that kind of person is not going to be of any benefit or help to anybody else either. And so there is a place that we have as the creation of God that becomes the springboard that allows us to love others like we should. And so this verse these verses here talk about the wonderful creation that we have made. And this is even in the midst of the problem of sin, right? I mean, even with sin around that breaks everything, there is still a special place that we have as the creation of God. And so I can look at my life and I can accept that God has made me to be like I am in this place. I could have been Chinese, born in the 5th century, right? But I'm not. Here I am today. and that's all by design. It's all, by the hand of God. So I praise you, O God, for how you have made me. I praise you because. So that's verse 1. I praise you because. This is how it reads. I praise you because. So then, it's actually the next few phrases that are going to be a little problematic for us. The second phrase says, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And when we look at it in English, we can really kind of break it up into two parts, right? I am fearfully made and I am wonderfully made, right? That's how it kind of reads to us. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I am fearfully made, I am wonderfully made. However, when you read it in the Hebrew, it doesn't read this way. Rather than fearful, it's actually talking about being afraid. It's using the common word for fear, and it's in a participle form. So, being afraid is how the phrase starts. It doesn't say, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. It says, being fearful or being afraid or being in awe, I am, and then the word wonderfully is also not the best translation. The word wonderfully is actually, it's wonderful in the sense of being unique and distinguished and being different, as opposed to wonderful as being, whoa, how amazing is that? So he says, being in awe of my difference, I have been made, I am different, I am unusual, I am distinct. So he is saying, like I have there, the second to last point, I am fearfully distinguished might be a good translation. I am fearfully unique. Or to paraphrase that, I am in awe of my uniqueness. So that's why I titled this thing, what was it? Awfully unique. Now, not awful in the sense of terrible, but awful in the sense of awesome or full of awe. I am unique in that. It's like, the expression, I stand in awe, or, that wow, it's like, wow, you're just kind of overwhelmed because of the amazingness of something. So that's what's being conveyed here. So he says, I will praise you because I am in awe of my uniqueness. Now, this really comes to light in verse 3. You'll see in verse 2, it says, wonderfully made in the English, right? You see that? Everybody see that? You can circle that, and you can circle the word marvelous also in your Bibles. They are the exact same Hebrew word. There's no difference here. And so the translation of being wonderfully made and then marvelous are your works is a little bit off, I think. I don't know what the history is of the translation of this verse, but they're the same words. So what he's saying here is that the idea of being unique or distinguished or different carries over here. And he says, and again it's a participle, being unique from your works. And so he says in verse 2, he says in the phrase 2, I am in awe of my uniqueness, being unique from your works. So it's kind of a qualifying phrase of his uniqueness. I am amazed at my uniqueness. My uniqueness distinguishes me from all the rest of your works. And I think this is really what he's saying here. And it kind of makes sense because to the Hebrew mind, there is something about the creation of man that is not translated in this English. There's something about in the creation of mankind in Genesis 1 and 2 that I think a Hebrew reading person would have picked up on that is completely missing from this passage that I think belongs there. Anybody want to hazard a guess? I know this is kind of not an easy question, but does anybody want to guess as to what part of the creation in Genesis 1 and 2 is missing from here?
Oh, missing.
Ben, you want to try?
I misunderstood the question. I didn't understand missing. Never mind.
The part that I think would have stood out is that man was made in God's image. Man was made in God's image. Now here's the point. There is no other thing in creation that has been made in the image of God. And I think that's exactly what he's saying in verse 14. I am in awe of my uniqueness. I am unique from your works. And so he's really saying, I am different. I'm different. Here's the guy standing in front of the mountains, and he is different from all the mountains. He's different from all the trees. He's different from the rocks. He's different from the deer. He's different from every animal and bug and bird and fish. He is different than everything else.
And each other.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's the difference between, I mean, we're all kind of unique in that way. And that comes out in the other verses here, too. And so, that's right. So, I'm different from Ben, thankfully, and Tim's different from me, and he's glad about that, I'm sure. And, on it goes. And that's our uniqueness that sets us apart. And then, if we look at it from this perspective, this last phrase, I think, makes a little bit more sense. My soul knows this very well. And I think what he's conveying here is that I know, being made in the image of God, I know I am different from the rest of the works. And nothing else knows that. The mountain doesn't know it. The bird doesn't know it. The flower doesn't know it. Nothing else knows this truth that he has been made in the image of God. Only man knows this. So, I give praise to you because I am amazing in my uniqueness, different from everything else, and I know it. Praise be to God. And then he goes on and he talks about, of course, some of the other aspects of our creation, and how nothing was hidden from him, and God fashioned and wove every one of us together, each one of us together, and we're just amazing parts of his creation. So anyway, this is a kind of digging a little deeper in verse 14 to what I think bring out the fact that we have been made in the image of God. And it's something to give praise unto God.
Wow.
All right, any thoughts or any comments, any questions?
That's phenomenal.
So if you do anything in verse 14, circle wonderfully and put a line, and circle marvelous and put a line between them, because they're the same word.
Just a random comment in that regard. My translation, ESV, first of all, it does make the 14, I praise you for, so it keeps it active.
Yeah, it takes out the I will praise you.
Yeah, and then it also uses wonderfully and just says wonderfully and wonderful, which is helpful.
So
They just go ahead and keep it,
okay,
which I just appreciate because
right.
it keeps it
So the
clear.
ESV is good in that sense.
That's interesting.
Right.
Huh.
Anybody else?
I do think it speaks to, we need to have, so often people are down on themselves for what they're not.
Yeah.
We compare ourselves to one another. And even when you're doing that, you're being negative, you're still consumed with self.
Right.
And who are we to criticize what God has made?
Yeah. That was our point in our Sunday school class this morning, that our world wants to talk about self-esteem, good self-esteem and bad self-esteem, and I think those are kind of misnomers or whatever, because a good self-esteem and a negative self-esteem are both equally self-focused. And the point is not that we have to feel better about who we are or think better thoughts about ourselves. What we need to do is grasp who we are in God's eyes and who He has made us to be. I am special not because, I look great and I'm so strong and, all of these things. I'm special because He said I'm special. He made me special. So I'm special because of Him. And as soon as we stop focusing on ourselves so much and start walking in the grace of how God has made us, we will be in a better position to love God better and to love others better. We will love ourselves like we ought. And we'll be able to, we were talking about how, having the wrong view of yourself keeps us from serving others like we should. We have to love our neighbors like we love ourselves.